This is Felicia. I guess I could say a little bit about the HBCU Green Fund and our Sustainable Africa Future Network. Let me say a little first about the network and then about the program. So the network we bring together climate advocates working um, working in their own local communities as well as working on policy campaigns, advocacy, education, but also adaptation. So, tackling climate change and advancing resilience at the same time on a larger level, working really hard to change policies, redirect financing, especially to younger people. And I think HBCU Green Fund, we've always worked locally with historically black colleges and universities, um, environmental justice networks and communities. And as well, we've participated, I myself personally, in the UN Conference of the Parties, UNFCCC, myself since COP6 in 2000, so 25, 26 years. And we noticed that um, youth from the continent were somewhat underrepresented. And this was in 22, coming out of COVID, and COP was in Scotland. So we began then to build a network. We've had a couple of um, pre-COP conferences, virtual conferences that showcase the work of these amazing young people, and that would be Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, um, in the West, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Liberia, on and on. And so we actually have a Zoom meeting every week, every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time that spans across the US and the Africa continent. And of course, we're always thinking from the perspective of the diaspora. We're really pleased now to be working closely with Howard University to actually build a registry of the projects that HBCUs are engaged with on the continent, as well as the sustainability work of these young people. So we are very um, aggressive in our organizing, and we believe that the real solutions to climate change will come from the bottom up, from frontline communities that are confronting these challenges. Um, we hope that policies and finances on a larger scale will move in that direction. But these young people have learned that no matter what international bodies do, they have to do what they must do at the local level and for their communities. And we're really um, working hard to support.
To begin tonight's conversation, we are honored to hear from Bashir, whose work reflects the growing power of young people to lead transformative conversations around climate justice, community resilience, and sustainable futures. Bashir, who is from Sierra Leone, thank you for joining us today. Well, Bashir, before we speak about organizations, initiatives, I would love to begin with you personally. Can you share a bit about yourself? What first sparked your journey into climate justice and community advocacy?
My name is Bashiru Koroma. I am a conservationist, an environmentalist, a climate justice activist, and I have been doing this work for a while, more than 10 years now. I'm also a planning and development specialist at the National Tourism Board in Sierra Leone, as well as the executive president and CEO of Keep Africa Beautiful Sierra Leone. My journey in climate justice, I could say, was sparked by multiple factors. Firstly, it was due to my personal experience with climate impacts and devastation in Sierra Leone. And that's happened specifically on the 14th of August 2017. There was a serious mudslide that killed more than 1,000 people in Sierra Leone. And it was after a heavy downpour of rain, which is one of the impacts of climate change, extreme weather events, which causes flooding. So that situation overwhelmed every social services in Freetown. A lot of people died and a state of emergency was declared. And as an environmentalist, I started thinking, why is it that people that are contributing less to this problem are the ones suffering the most? So my desire to contribute in helping solve that problem actually led me to enter the journey of climate justice. So since then, I founded Keep Africa Beautiful Sierra Leone as a youth organization because I observed that there was no inclusion in decision making that deal with policies that actually deal with either mitigation or adaptation to climate change. So I founded Keep Africa Beautiful Sierra Leone as a youth activism and advocacy so that we can also collaborate with other organizations in helping to solve or to contribute in solving the challenge of climate change.
Thank you so much, Bashir. To add on, tell us about the organization or initiative you're leading or working with. What is your mission? Who are the communities you work with? And what is one initiative or project you're especially excited about right now?
The organization I am leading is Keep Africa Beautiful Sierra Leone. Our vision is to create a wall of community that is socially connected, economically sound, and environmentally healthy. And in that, we have a mission. The mission is to engage individuals, institutions, and communities to provide environmental sustainability, climate education, and community empowerment. That is our mission. So we engage institutions, government institutions, learning institutions like schools, like universities. We also engage local organizations, local communities, and local community leaders. So the initiative that we're working on currently that is so exciting actually have series of activities like climate change awareness. We organize climate change awareness programs. We organize environmental education in schools and colleges, community sanitation and hygiene. We organize tree planting events and conservation education. We organize youth empowerment through mentoring, public speaking programs. We also organize civic and environmental leadership programs. So currently we have a flagship program we are working on, which is the Community Youth Climate Science Lab and Collaboration Hub. The Community Youth Climate Science Lab is a center where we mobilize community youths to engage in thinking, in innovating, in creating solutions to the climate change impact. The one thing we are currently focused on is climate smart agriculture, because we have a lot of people engaged in agricultural activities. So climate smart agriculture is what we're doing through gardening, teaching people how to improve their soil, how to do agriculture in an extreme environment, in an extreme weather event. That kind of things is what we are training young people at the Climate Science Lab at Collaboration Hub.
What does meaningful support look like for your work moving forward? And how can the people watching today, including the educators advocates, institutions, and partner organizations meaningfully engage with or support your mission?
So we need other people to work. We cannot do it alone. We need others' support. We always collaborate. We always partner in critical areas. Currently, as I indicated earlier, we have this Youth Climate Science Lab and Collaboration Hub, which is like a resilience center where we teach people in agriculture, in waste management, how to solve real-time problems. So we are also learning in the process. So we want to extend our desire to collaborate, to partner with other organizations that are advanced or that are not, to help us with technical tools, technical education, technical expertise, with learning materials like books, like networks that can help us improve our knowledge, that can help us broaden our horizon. We are doing climate smart agriculture without proper tools, without proper knowledge. So we need tools like the greenhouse, which is normally used in processing the greenhouse gardening. And also we need tools like agricultural tools, improve variety of crops that can survive in a very challenging weather, in a very challenging environment. We need recommendations to programs that can help us have more projects to expand our operation in other areas, because we also want to expand our geographic scope to other areas. So that is what we currently need. We need partners, we need collaborators, we need sponsors, we need funders. Our doors are open. We have an open door policy to collaborate.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Bashir, for sharing your story, your leadership, and the important work you continue to do. Well, our next panelist reminds us that the climate justice is deeply connected to inclusion, representation, and ensuring that communities most affected by environmental challenges are part of leading the solutions. Vanessa from Kenya, it is wonderful to have you with us. Vanessa, can you take us through your personal journey and share what first inspired your involvement in climate justice and advocacy?
Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa Ngunjiri. I'm a 26-year-old woman living in Nairobi, Kenya. When we talk about climate justice, at first I didn't quite get it. And it's because I hadn't really noticed the effects, or rather, I thought it would be these grand challenges. They are the grand challenges, but I think at an individual level, you don't introspect until I started noticing it and noticing all the plastic that we have. I come from Nairobi, a city where water is such a huge challenge, but Nairobi is also the city where we have a river. And so learning that this plastic clogs these water systems, and therefore an area like mine and other areas in Nairobi, us not getting water, that was so ironic. So deeper introspection and deeper research revealed to me that actually plastic is such a huge challenge in the climate discourse. And you may not think about it because a bottle of water, really, what difference does it do? But it is not biodegradable. It takes hundreds of years before it actually completely degrades. And that was the challenge. And that was the part I felt this is a place I could make an impact on, regardless of how small my impact will be.
Tell us more about the organization or initiative you're part of. What communities do you work with? What is your broader mission? And what is one initiative currently giving you hope and excitement?
I lead an organization called Gaia Waste Innovators. Gaia is the name of the Greek goddess of the environment, and Waste Innovators because we are all about the waste or all about the plastic. And as I've said, plastic is such a huge challenge. You cannot ignore it. And everybody uses plastic, whether consciously or unconsciously. And so the challenge being, how do we deal with plastic and making sure that our first mission is that plastic remains in the circular economy, right? That at no point do we discard plastic before we fully utilized it and ensure that it has gone through its full life cycle. That's our biggest mission at the moment. Who do we work with? Children in schools, children outside of schools in creative platforms such as football teams and sports teams. We work with young people, collectors, recyclers, crashers, and we work with other young women like ourselves. This is a gap where we are talking about unemployment, yet this is a gap that has so much opportunity and green jobs for women, young people, people with disabilities, and other marginalized communities. So that is a place where we feel as young people, as young women, because Gaia is a women's is a women-led and women organization mostly. What's the role that we play? What am I most excited about? We are just getting into teaching children about segregation. The first step was teaching children in schools how to collect plastic, right? Let's not discuss the plastic. Let's make sure that we are conscious about how we collect our plastic after use. But beyond that, how do we segregate these plastics? There's different types of plastics, PT, PET, HDPE, which we use in our day-to-day lives. So teaching these children and seeing them become so curious and know that all these different types of plastics have different life cycles and can be used in different ways, including even being sold and whatnot. That has been very exciting and very purpose-filling for me and for Gaia Waste Innovators as a whole. Be it through upcycling, just making sure that we reduce the harms of plastic in the environment as much as possible. The people we work with, young people, children in schools, youth like us in their 20s and 30s, necessarily anyone who consumes plastic, including starting from the household level. A mission I'm very excited about right now is that we are getting into the schools and we're getting to work with children. And specifically right now, we are teaching kids in schools how to segregate plastics. So we started with the bins where we collect plastic. That's okay, that's good. But there's various types of plastic, PET, PT, HDPE. How do we segregate these various types of plastic? Because they all have different life cycles. So that is what we are teaching the children, and it's very exciting to see them take it up. But beyond that is to make sure that plastic has value, and that's the truth. And this is what we're teaching them. Beyond this, how do we, even working with the young people and women like us, how do we make sure that they're getting money through plastic, be it upcycling into what we make, like benches and pipes, be it selling the plastic, be it cleaning it, crushing. There is so much in the plastic ecosystem, and this is what I'm very excited about, to open up these opportunities, not only for ourselves, but other people as well.
What kind of support or collaboration would strengthen your work most right now? And how can those watching become part of advancing your mission?
To begin with Gaia Waste Innovators, the challenge that we face is that plastic technology, or at least where we are at, plastic technology is still very limited. So you'll find that machines that we use to produce, we have to outsource and we have to pay for that. And so it means we do not run our whole process from collection to segregation to processing, then to whatever we want to make. So that's a challenge because the machines are expensive. So if we're able to partner with other organizations, other people, what we're doing right now as Gaia Waste Innovators is partnering with another small organization that has the machine. But we'd be able to hope that in future and through partnerships that we're able to perhaps purchase our own machine, perhaps even educators and scientists. How can we be able to make these plastics and not necessarily how can we be able, to make these machines and not be able to import them, So that's the challenge that you're facing at the moment. But beyond just the plastic challenge, beyond just the machine challenge, it's also in terms of financial support. It's also in terms of spreading this message, ensuring that the work we're doing now can be replicated in other parts of the country, in other parts of East Africa and in other parts of Africa as well. So we think that there lies a gap also in knowledge. We are still figuring out how to deal with PET plastic, the plastic that makes water bottles and whatnot. It is reducing in value. How can we maximize it better? So, because that's the most used type of plastic, how can we maximize it better? So research has to keep going, and I think that's an area that we're very excited about, to keep helping with research, to keep working with young people, educators, scientists, and anybody else who can chip in. I think there's a goal. I think the biggest goal that we have beyond production is to ensure that this message goes far. So it's also mainstreaming our work and making sure that our work reaches more people than we already are. And I think that would be very meaningful impact from our end.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Your reflections remind us that climate justice work is also deeply about people, dignity, and collective care. As we continue this conversation, we now hear from Johnson, who is also from Kenya, whose work contributes to reimagining sustainable futures through youth leadership, innovation, and advocacy. Johnson, thank you for joining us. Johnson, can you share a bit about your personal journey and what first drew you into climate justice and sustainability work?
Thank you so much. My name is Johnson Ongan. I'm a youth leader based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm equally the founder of Sabiko Group of Friends. My journey into the climate justice space has been deeply personal and rooted in my lived experiences growing up in Kibera. Kibera is one of the largest informal settlements in Africa. And for us, when you're talking about climate change, when we are talking about the heat waves, especially with the mud houses that we live in and with the brown iron sheets that we live in, we do not have ACs. It's us trying to remove our clothes. But to what extent are you able to do this? At the same time, I've seen a couple of my friends drowning in water while they were sleeping on their bed. Some that are not privileged, sleeping on their floors, drowning. So for me, climate justice and climate change is not something I've been reading on newspapers or on storybooks. This is something I've seen. Over time, I came to understand that climate justice is closely tied to social justice. The same community that contributes the least to climate change have often been the most affected. The global south countries, trickle down to Kenya, trickling down to informal settlements where housing is still a challenge, where accessing clean water is still a challenge. It's good when you're able to identify a gap within your community. It's even better when you're able to mobilize people around the problem and together come up with solutions. Because growing up, what I've always known, if my community is going to be liberated, it's from me, it's from us, those of us that are working together, that we are going to liberate our community. Today, I see climate action as an entry point to empowering young people to take charge of their futures and reimagine their communities. Being able to mobilize my fellow young people, being able to mobilize the women in my community, being able to mobilize children, so that at the end of the day, when we are able to advance our communities, we are all excited about the advancement, all of us as a community, be it youth, be it children, be it women, be it those of us that are able different in the PWDs. Because community development trickles down to each and every person being able to access clean water, access education, access health, and access a space where they're able to dream.
Tell us more about the work you are currently leading and contributing to. What is your mission? Who are the communities you serve, Johnson? And what initiative are you most excited about at the moment?
Yeah, thank you so much. As I mentioned earlier, I lead an organization called Sabiko Group of Friends. Sabiko is a native word that means coming back to the roots. So Sabiko Group of Friends is a youth-led, community-based organization committed to building a generation of self-sustaining youth. Our mission is to equip young people with knowledge, skills, and opportunities to thrive while addressing the challenges their communities have. We are currently working on 5 pillars. Our first pillar is on education and lifelong learning. Our second pillar is on youth skilling and development. Our third pillar is on climate action and environmental stewardship. Our fourth pillar is on peace building and social cohesion. And our last pillar, the fifth pillar, is strategic partnership and community engagement. All these 5 pillars are geared towards making sure that we are able to address the current needs of our community. Currently, we are implementing a couple of programs within the organization. And there's one of the programs that I'm so much connected to. We are calling it Right to Learn. Within this program, what we are trying to do and what we've been able to do is to support schools in underserved communities, these informal settlements, by providing basic learning materials while also integrating mentorship tracks. And we've seen over the years, since we started this work 5-6 years down the line, we've been able to produce learners that are holistic, learners that are able to go about their academics, both in class, academics in school, and being able to translate that academics to viable solutions that are able to address at a community level. We equally have our second pillar, program, called the Period Caravan. This program is geared around empowering girls, teen moms, and boys as we provide menstrual health education, access to menstrual products, and reproductive health with an integration of environmental conservation. The program promotes dignity, inclusion, and breaks the stigma, especially in our rural and underserved areas. We have our third program called Vibes and Threads, which is our sustainable fashion platform that engages young creatives drawn from our informal settlements in Nairobi. And what we are trying to do and what we are doing is going about the innovative ways of upcycling, recycling, and repurposing of textile materials. And we've seen this promote the environmental consciousness while also creating pathways for innovation and entrepreneurship in the fashion space. Through this, we are working towards building a bold vision, creating a Kibera Fashion Week. For us, Kibera Fashion Week will be rooted in the local talent, sustainability, and community stories. As I conclude, across all these programs, our approach is to connect education, climate action, and economic empowerment in a way that is practical, inclusive, and youth-led. Thank you so much.
What does meaningful support look like for your work today? And how can institutions, educators, organizations, and individuals engage with the mission in meaningful ways?
Yeah, thank you so much. In our fifth pillar, we are so big on strategic partnership and community engagement. We believe as individuals, we are often limited. But when we come together, when we're able to partner, we're able to do so much to change our communities. So for us, meaningful support for our work is about collaboration and shared purpose. You can support us with the Right to Learn program by helping us expand access to learning materials and mentorship opportunities for students in underserved schools. For organizations and advocates, there are opportunities to collaborate on programs like Period Caravan and Vibes and Threads, whether through funding, co-creation, or technical support. We believe these programs are scalable and can reach many more young people with the right partnership. Having you on board can help us amplify this work.
Beautifully shared. Thank you so much, Johnson, for your insights and for the work you continue to do. Our final panelist in this segment reminds us that climate justice is ultimately about protecting people, communities, and future generations. Lucky, all the way from Nigeria, it is truly wonderful to have you with us. Lucky, can you share your personal journey with us and what inspired your involvement in climate justice and advocacy work?
Interesting. Thank you for that question. So, my journey and what sparked my work into climate justice started sometime in 2018. Before then, as the first son of my dad, of my parents, I would always follow my dad to the farm from age 8. And I would always see what we usually get at harvest. Or when I got through to the university and always come back home, I started seeing that the harvests were dwindling. And then I began to ask questions. However, I started my volunteering work that same period, 2018, 2019, where I volunteered for organizations around the development space. One very notable one is the UK-based Voluntary Service Overseas, VSO. I started my volunteering journey with VSO through some of their educational program. But I got exposed to the UN Agenda 2030, which is the SDGs, which has 17 goals. And out of these 17 goals, my favorite goals when I started used to be goal 1 and goal 2. But when I got deeper into the SDGs, I came across goal 13, which is climate action. And the target of that was to really combat climate change and its impact. So I could easily relate goal 13 of the SDGs to goal 1 and goal 2, no poverty and zero hunger, and also with the work that I do. However, I got really deep into the climate justice work as a young professional when I got a fully funded scholarship to the inaugural Nairobi Summer School on Climate Justice in 2021 in Kenya, where I got to learn the concept of climate justice more. But what really caught my attention during this scholarship was the narrative that Africa contributes less than 4% to the global greenhouse gas emission that causes climate change. However, Africa suffers the most of the impact of climate change. We could see it in flooding. In Nigeria, for example, every year, about 26 out of the 36 states are usually flooded between August and September down to October. So I could relate flooding. I could relate the narrative of drought. I could relate also job losses. So this also brought out more questions. I began to ask more questions. Why is this? Why is that? And then I joined young people around social media campaigns. One of the most notable campaigns I've been part of and pushed is the Waters Change campaign, and also the Climate Justice Now campaign of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, PACJA. So this is how my journey started. But while I began to work after the scholarship to Nairobi for the inaugural Summer School on Climate Justice, I got opportunity as well to join the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network. It's called the CYCN, where I served at the executive level for 2 years. And this was where I really firmed my grip on pushing for and engaging around climate justice work. So this is how my journey and also what really sparked the interest to push climate justice. The fact that Africa suffers the most. And by the time you look at how Africa suffers, young people also suffer extreme cases, which also include job losses. And this is how I started, I think. Over to you.
Tell us about the organization or initiative you're part of. What communities are you working with? And what is your mission? And what initiative are you currently most passionate about?
Thank you very much. I currently work with Green Faith Africa, where I serve as the Nigeria National Coordinator. Green Faith is a multi-faith grassroots movement working with faith leaders. And our strategic plan, our mission is to see that faith leaders play a very critical role in advancing climate justice conversation, that faith leaders' voices are amplified in calling and speaking truth to power especially around our moral obligation to protecting the earth. Our driving force at Green Faith is the fact that one of the major causes of climate change is methane from fossil fuel. And we've seen from the sixth assessment report of the IPCC, and also we've seen calls from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who has lended his voice to the fact that fossil fuel are a major cause of climate change. So what we do at Green Faith is to build the capacity of faith leaders to understand the climate change and climate justice context, and then encourage them to use their platform to advocate and also to call for a decrease in fossil fuel investment, then increase in renewable energy options. In this case, for us, we push solar, which we think it's a clean alternative to energy that is from fossil fuel. One of the most interesting initiatives that we're working on currently is called the African Women of Faith in Energy, currently being implemented in about 5 African countries where we have presence. And the initiative is to build the capacity of frontline women who are most impacted by oil spill and oil exploration. And for Nigeria, our focus area is the Ogoniland, where we have the impact of fossil fuel that's affecting fishing, affecting farming, affects the drinking water of the community. So we are beginning to build the capacity of women to engage and also hold duty bearers accountable to providing alternative energy sources for them. But also, I think another initiative that will be interesting to mention on this call is the launch of our climate justice and social protection for climate adaptation work that we just started recently somewhere in southwestern part of Nigeria. So these 2 initiatives is what we're currently working on. But on the broader scale at the Africa region, we're also pushing the Stop EACOP campaign, which is majorly being championed around the East Africa region of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lucky. But what does meaningful support look like for your work and vision moving forward? How can the audiences watching today contribute meaningfully to the change you are building?
Interesting. Thank you. One of the things we try to do with our campaign work, currently we have the Heal Our Land campaign, which is currently being implemented in Nigeria. There is the Keep Oil in the Ground in Ghana. And then there's the Stop EACOP campaign in East Africa. A meaningful engagement would be, for me, very simple. Simply commenting, simply tagging those who are responsible for the climate crisis, say the US government, say the big oil corporation, would really mean a lot to us at Green Faith and also be meaningful engagement. However, there is a different level of meaningful engagement, and that is for young people, my constituency that I've always supported. Meaningful engagement would also be making access to every resources that makes climate action meaningful and easy for young people to access. First off, it is very difficult from where I'm from for young people to even get badges to attend global climate change conferences. Furthermore, it is very difficult for them to even get into these negotiation rooms. And then I have friends who jokingly would say, getting access to climate finance is even more difficult than getting a PhD. And this is true because the requirements, the years of experience, the documentation that have been required from young people is difficult for them to get. So it's an attack on meaningful engagement. Easing the process, designing and developing youth-friendly climate finance, access to climate finance would also push meaningful engagement. So for me, if I see organizations or young people able to reshare, comment on posts, on engagement, on narratives that support them, that would really mean meaningful for me and also for the work that we do, not just in Nigeria, but on the African continent. I'll stop here and over to you.
Thank you so much, Lucky. Your reflections, just like all the other panelists have said, I think just like Vanessa has pointed out, Bashir has said, and just like Johnson has also mentioned, we think climate justice is not simply about just the environmental protection, but also about justice, dignity, livelihoods, and the futures communities actually deserve. So thank you to all our panelists for those incredibly powerful reflections and insights. One thing that has stood out so clearly is that this climate justice work we are all doing is challenging, but also it is deeply human.
Right. I see, Lucky, you're here. So I'm just going to go on. Well, just like you made a submission around what sustains this work we do over time, and I think just like we have heard from Bashir, we have heard from Vanessa, and just like we had from Johnson and James, who is here on the call. One thing is that our work intersects. That even when we are across different countries, regions, West Africa, East Africa, our work still intersects. So, as you in Nigeria, in West Africa, where do you see the greatest opportunity of collaboration or even shared strategy across the African continent on climate and youth leadership? Just like you mentioned, you're in a number of spaces, Commonwealth, youth leadership spaces. So, where do you think we can find synergies or even shared strategies as a continent? Over to you, Lucky.
Thank you, Denise. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, Lucky, I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. So just to hit the nail on the head, it's an interesting time. We have here a lot of review and validation of framework that will change how the narrative for climate engagement and climate justice would go. First off is I see a lot of West African countries reviewing and validating their third generation NDCs. And if you look at this framework that is being reviewed and validated and submitted as well, we are seeing addition of new entries for that create space for young people to collaborate. The issue of mental health is starting to come into third generation NDC. We are now seeing the mention of waste sector, circular waste in NDCs of countries from the West Africa. But more interestingly, there's also the regional framework development. The ECOWAS region is also updating its environmental strategy. But this also are happening at the same time and would give meaning to what climate justice would look like, especially for young people, in terms of building stronger advocacy strategy. We always point out that young people need to be at the table. So the validation processes that is going on for this framework do not have as many young people as it ought to be, right? So this presents an opportunity for young people to build synergy. Let's say young people in Nigeria trying to identify their counterpart, their colleagues in Ghana, in Senegal, in Benin, that could all push together and go to, let's say, the ECOWAS Secretariat that is in Abuja, Nigeria, or even as well think of the West Africa Court of Justice, seeing also the update that is also coming from the ICJO, the advisory opinion on climate justice. So this also the new frontiers or openings that I think young people could build strategic partnership, right? While they design stronger advocacy messaging that target funders who would trust in their capacity to amplify the issues that young people face, and also the issue that we face as a continent for climate justice. So looking at taking opportunity of the validation process that is going on for the third generation NDC, that most African countries are currently. For Nigeria, they've submitted theirs to the UNFCCC. A few other countries are still at the verge of, but most countries that are submitted are also now developing action plans for implementing their NDCs. These old processes provide opportunities for stronger collaboration by young people, and also build stronger advocacy messaging, and also demand for stronger climate action. Over to you, Dennis.
All right. Thank you so much, Lucky. And I think you point out very crucial things. Also, I think when the ECOWAS coming up with what exactly looks like an environmental policy for young people, but also some of the synergies that we can actually tap in as young people. So just right about now, I'm just going to ask all my 4 panelists the same question, and then I'm just going to start with James. So James, I know very well you do the same work. You work together with Johnson, and I would want to ask a question. What about your work brings you joy? What makes you wake up every morning that you feel that you should do this work you're doing? What keeps you going? What makes you put a smile? What puts a smile on your face? So I'll just start with you, James. Over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise. Please confirm you can hear me before I continue.
Yes, I can hear you, Johnson.
Great. Thank you so much. And I have to say that I really love the direction that this conversation is taking. At least we are seeing some insights from the perspective of this is what we think, this is what you're doing, and this is the kind of impact that you're having so far. And these are the kind of areas that we can be able to change on as we move on. So that's quite amazing. At least it shows that we are learning in the journey. And it promises us of a better future whereby we're able to learn from our past experiences and be able to come up with something better that works in a more formalized manner. So looking at the aspect of what brings me joy, or rather what makes me want to continue with the work that I do, I think I have to say that at the end of the day, it's impact. And again, when we talk about impact, this is from a very diverse perspective. It's not only impact from the aspect of outputs from a project, but again, with time, as we continue that particular project or program, being able to trace a certain actionable item after some time to an initiative that we're able to start a while back. Let me give a very practical example of the Right to Learn project, or rather with Johnson himself. And I remember citing this a while back during one of our events. When we say that education is a tool for transformation in the society, and having seen Johnson grow up in Kibera, equipped with the right education, equipped with the right tools, and now again coming back to Kibera to transform, or rather to be able to actualize that image that he has in his mind of what impact actually looks like at a community level. I'd say that is what gives me joy. Being able to know that at the end of the day, you're able to trace a certain impact, rather a certain outcome, because again, most of these are outcomes, not outputs. You're able to trace a certain outcome to some initiative that you're able to start a while back. I think that is the most fulfilling thing for me. And again, as I was saying, a practical example of Kibera with the Right to Learn program. Let's say, for example, today we have a project, or rather we have an activity equipping 20 students with books. And again, we follow that up with, because again, the very first step in Right to Learn is to equip. And after you equip, you empower the kid. And after you empower the kid, you're able to sustain him in school. So looking at it from the sustaining level bit of it, let's say you're able to sustain this kid in school for some 8 years. And at the end of the day, this kid is able to graduate and attach himself or herself to a very credible institution that is able to capacity build himself in such a way that he is able to offer value in the market, or rather to offer value to the community in terms of transformation. I'd say that is the most fulfilling thing for me, being able to come back and trace impact to a certain activity that we're able to actualize a while back. Maybe just before I finish, just felt that there was some need to say this. Looking at it from the aspect of financing, as your first question was, I'd say there's also an aspect of looking at it from a sustaining level. I'd say there's an aspect of also rethinking the model, because we've seen in the previous times what has happened to the business as usual kind of situation when it comes to nonprofit, when it comes to startups. But again, for the donors, something like building a community around these organizations that they're engaging with, to not necessarily to fund them continuously, because again, this might marginalize some organizations. But again, having that community in such a way that even if they're not able to fund these people, they're able to match them to people who are able to fund them, or rather to help them resource-wise or financial wise, in whichever way possible. So just having that community for people to grow together, for people to be able to explore more opportunities as they come up, I feel like that would go a long way in helping us, or rather in helping the donors be able to sustain the kind of impact that they envision. And also in terms of donors being able to trace impact, because again, I feel like when it comes to reporting metrics for the donors, it's mostly highly bent on the outputs bit of it, 100 trees, 100 kids engaged. But again, with building a community and being able to engage with them over time, you were able to trace, or rather you're able to account for some outcomes that actually came from these impacts. You're able to say that at the end of the day, as much as there was 100 trees built, we had a community that was able to build a culture around that particular forest, and they are benefiting from it from maybe a mental health perspective, from a livelihood perspective, being able to get firewood and all that. So I'd say those are my two key takeaways from that question. And yeah, thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, James. And you really put a lot of emphasis on impact, on how it brings you joy. And I see in the chat very many positive comments, right, from David, from Mitchell. So let's keep doing what we are doing. We keep fighting. And right about now, if any of us from the audience has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat for any of the panelists. And I will go straight to Bashir. Same question. What brings you joy? What part of your work actually makes you smile and wake up every morning wanting to do the same work? Over to you, Bashir.
Thank you, Denisa. Can you hear me clearly?
Oh, yes, Bashir, I can hear you clearly.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. What makes me passionate about what I'm doing, one is the fulfillment of sense of purpose, because we have strong challenge here that affects people around you. You wake up in the morning, if it is the rain, you see flooding, you see landslide, you see deforestation, you see waste management affecting people everywhere you go. You see poor sanitation. So how can you contribute in the little way in helping a child survive such battle? How can you contribute in a little way to ensure that a community is clean? How can you contribute in a little way to ensure that people around you at least survive for that day? That sense of purpose, that realization of your vision, your organizational vision, and the contribution of what you are putting to society, that your little way you contributing to ensure that a child that doesn't have access to education, even if it's a one kid, you help to ensure that for that day, that child is able to identify the alphabet A, B, and C. That kind of what we're doing is what actually keep me going, because in our communities here, everything is a priority. Everything I mean is a priority. Energy is a priority, health is a priority, education is a priority, food security is a priority. So in such kind of community, the way you contribute in helping the most vulnerable is what keeps us going. And that is very important because it comes from different angles. So you go to bed, you consider yourself to be privileged because one, you are educated, you have a network, you have food on your table, but some people don't. So that kind of what we're doing is what keeps us going every day. And we are seeing the impact every day. We have been able to build a school in our community where people go and learn. When you see young kids learning in the school where you contributed to build, it fulfills you. It gives you a sense of fulfillment, a sense of satisfaction, and it brings smile on the faces of the most vulnerable in the community. So those are the things that keep us going. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Bashir. And I think you paint a very great reality of what exactly happens on ground and how these individuals or even how the children's lives are transformed. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Kudos and keep the work going. Well, right about now, I will just call on Vanessa, who is our final panelist to this question. Please, Vanessa, feel free to answer the same question. Over to you.
Thank you, Denise. And it's just to appreciate the input from my fellow panelists, Bashiru and James, on how important. And I think at the end of the day, all this work goes to the community. So I think the initial goal is seeing that the joy comes from seeing the community understand the work, right? The second thing is that beyond just the community knowing what's going on, it's for them to take ownership and for the community to also want to spearhead and take part, not only take part, but also be the limelight or the spotlight of this. So in as much as we are young leaders doing amazing things, our work makes no change if it's just us doing it. Our work is more impactful if it's community centric, if it's picked up by other, for example, in my case, other young women, other children, other young men, other people in general. So necessarily that's the joy, I would say, that work is not only done by us, but also sustainability by ensuring that people or that the work is developed, is adapted, and is owned by the community. Then that creates a sequence. And we talk about sustainable development, and as Lucky had alluded to earlier, I think climate action also means collective climate action. And if we're able to take this down to the community and for it to be very collective, that is the joy. I know the challenge of funding remains there, but I think the joys or the wins that we are seeing in our work, for example, what we're doing here in Kenya, is that people are understanding their work, is that the community is also owning up their work. The goal is to scale, and therefore that will be a joy at another level, scale to other parts of Kenya, scale to other parts of Africa, and be able to collaborate just as we do in the network with other young leaders. But we see that these are joys and these are wins that we can celebrate for now. Back to you, Dennis.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And I think you also point out the same issue that came from Lucky, Bashir, or even James around impact. And that's very great to see. So, well, I think I've just read from the chat, Shehu has a question where he asks, hello, dear speakers, is there any way you can develop a joint proposal for sustainable projects you're developing? So I would just throw it at you, and then anyone could answer this. I think this is a joint question also, just like the joint proposal. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, maybe I can go, Denise.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay, I remember someone saying, I think it was Lucky who mentioned something about mapping out some of the people who are actually realizing the same initiatives that you're doing in your area. And again, going beyond that and looking at it from a regional level, who is doing what you're doing at an African level? How can we collaborate? So I think at the end of the day, what really matters when you're designing these things, or rather when you're thinking around these things, it is the intentionality behind it, and two, a sense of shared purpose. Because again, I feel like working around a common proposal is not an issue. But again, let's say if at all the project is successful, looking at it from the perspective of, as Vanessa said, the sustainability aspect of it. So that's where the aspect of the shared vision comes in. So I feel like with the proper mapping and with the proper highlight of who is doing the same thing as what we are doing, who aligns with what we're doing in terms of mission and vision, and who carries a sense of shared purpose with us, then that can set a very good ground for people to actually work around co-designing or rather co-creating proposals that go a long way in creating a very sustainable impact. I am happy to highlight that as we speak right now, Johnson wasn't able to bring the call because he's in Uganda currently as we speak, engaging with an organization called Mukasa Foundation. And I think they had a very big event yesterday, that's rather related to the World Day. So I think this is one of the very many examples that we can give of cross-border engagement and the success that it have. And again, also looking at this very engagement that we're having today, a very diverse pool of young people from across the continent coming here, not because they didn't have anything else to do, but because we feel like that we have a common shared purpose that can go a long way in helping us achieve a better and more sustainable Africa. So yes, I feel like, yes, it is possible, but again, at the end of the day, thinking around who do we align with, and at the end of the day, looking at the bigger picture, who do we share a common sense of with, and how can this go, rather, how can this contribute in the long run in achieving the vision and mission that we have in our organization. So yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, James. And I think just like all the other panelists, I've seen just in the chat they have texted yes. So sure, the answer is yes. The panelists are willing to develop a joint proposal that could actually come into handy for better change and for better scaling in the different works they are doing. So right about now, thank you so much for engaging. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for willing to share your journey, your work with all of us, and for the audience for sticking with us until now. So I want to just close our conversation with just all of us. One last question for any in the audience, for all of us to just drop in our favorite quotes. What is something that brings joy to you? For anyone in the audience, feel free to text. Yeah. And I saw David had already texted in the audience. So thank you, panelists. If there is one thing that you've done in this conversation is that we take away hope that has been brought to us. And it is this hope that will keep us going. The leadership we need on climate is already here. It is young, rooted in community, and happening right now across the African continent. Now, our job together with everyone on the call, whether we fund, partner, or organize, is to simply show up, is to follow the leadership and to resource what is happening on the African continent. So here is how you can get involved. Please refer to the chat for the panelists link. Fuzia shared some of the panelists' profiles, where you can find them, where you can connect with them, follow their organizations, and please share the recording widely once it is posted so that it can reach as many change makers as possible. Also in the chat, you will see a link to a short survey, which you're going to realize that would be grateful for your thoughts if you shared them. And it genuinely shapes what to do next and what should actually be followed. So, and one thing is that, remember, as we have had this conversation, it does not stop here. We are now going to open a breakout room for networking session that is going to be hosted by none other than Dr. Devin Blockstein of Solve Climate by 2030. He's a Bard College project. So we really encourage you, all of you, to join the breakout room and keep the conversation going. If you have any story of your own to share, this is the place to do it. So please feel free, be like Lucky, be like one James, or you be like one Vanessa, or even one Bashir, and be able to share your story. So once you do, please note that this will begin in the next 5 minutes. Finally, our deep thanks to the partners who made today possible. To HBCU Green Fund Africa, to Solve Climate by 2030, a project of Bard College, and to the team behind Terra 40, who produced and managed this convening. Thank you to all of you for being here. Africa is rising, and so is this network. We will see you in the next breakout room in just a few minutes. That is the end of our main program for now. The networking breakout session and room is open. Please join and keep the conversation going. See you in there. Thank you.